Hi again, guys. It's Chris from Once Upon a Turnbuckle podcast, and thank you for joining me for another edition of Go Figure. As we've seen in recent weeks, my wrestling collection is starting to come together quite nicely. We've got the WCW Galoobs, which has been my main focus up to this point, and we are, dare I say it, most of the way there. As we've seen, we have got Series 1 complete. I'm just after those sort of outliers for Series 2. But I touched on last week another collection which I am branching off into in the meantime, just to kind of keep me busy in between getting these last few Galoobs, which might elude me for a little while. And we saw the first two editions in that, in the Jakks BCA collection that I'm putting together, Wildman Mark Merrow and this guy here, Al Snow. Now, I hinted that there was quite an exciting addition to this collection, which was really the reason, a bit like PM News was with the Galoobs, the reason why I was wanting to put this together. And he's here. So I promised an episode that I would probably dedicate more to the Jakks BCA lines, at least to explain why, the importance of this line to me. What's in this box will hopefully shed a bit of light on at least why I wanted to start it back up again. I'm not going to give a history lesson on the Jakks BCA line. I may decide to do kind of a retrospective review type history of episode further down the line. But just to kind of kick off from this point, the relevance of this line to me, really it was I've credited it as the first line that I was able to go out and buy myself. And what I mean there is, with the Galoobs and the Hasbros, most of them were bought for me. They were before a time that I had any real money of my own. Birthdays, Christmas rolled around, I would get given most of the wrestling figures I had during the first, 5-6 years of me being into wrestling was bought by other people. The Jakks BCA line came along when I was about 12, 13. So again, didn't have a job, but I had pocket money that I was able to spend on whatever I wanted to and save it as I wanted to. Same with birthday, Christmas money. I went off and spent that however I wanted. But this was around about a time that I was actually able then to physically go out and find them and just basically create this and add to my collection myself. So a brief history lesson for those who want it on the Jakks BCA line. So it was the first line to come out from the WWF since the Hasbros. So I think the Hasbros released up until about 94. The Jakks line first came out in 1996. Series 1 was made up of 6 figures, which was Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, Diesel, Undertaker, and Goldust. I always thought Goldust was an odd one to have, but looking back on it, probably at that point in time, he was the IC champ for a lot of the period around, I think, that they first came out, so I can kind of understand that. My own experience with them, I think the first one I had was from that Series 1 Undertaker. My mum came back from town once. She'd been able to get me one as a treat from Argos. For those of you in the UK know what Argos is. For those who aren't in the UK who may not know, it's a shop you used to be able to go into. It had a catalogue and you picked whatever you wanted from the catalogue and they would bring it to you. It was great. The problem I had with these guys, firstly, not a problem, but like Al Snow here, absence of these really wacky actions like the Hasbros had, like spring actions, and don't get me started on the jumpers. Some people probably heard me talk about this already, and my distaste for the jumper. There was it was just a generic play pose, body type, really. Some people criticize this line, I think, for being not as cartoony as the Hasbros, but wasn't very detailed with some of them. I like this version of Al Snow. Not an exact likeness, but the character is there. I think with some of the other stars, it looked like they did really gloss over the detail in sort of the face and concentrated more maybe on the body and the outfits and that kind of thing. But I love the fact that they were just all pretty much the same, which made playability across them all, fantastic. You didn't really have, or I didn't anyway, didn't have my favourites in terms of actions and poses and things like that. They were, you did that yourself. But I suppose one of the issues I had when they first came out was the scale of them, because 6 inches, they are bigger than the Hasbros and the Galoobs by quite a bit. And my problem was, even with the Undertaker, who is taller than most stars out there, the scale was way off, and they couldn't really fit into my fig fed. Plus, I wanted a Shawn Michaels. I was a massive Shawn Michaels fan at the time, and knowing there was one that you could get, my mum, bless her, did try a couple of other times. You couldn't choose in Argos which one you got. So I ended up with 2 Undertakers, I think, before I actually got a Shawn Michaels. She may have even taken my duplicate Undertaker back to swap, I'm not sure. But eventually I got a Shawn Michaels, which is great. He had the Undertaker that I could kind of match him with, but they didn't really fit still with my fig fed, because all the figures I had were that kind of size. They were from Batman, they were Bucky O'Hare, Turtles, all that kind of thing. They fit with the Hasbros and the Galoobs. But I think it must have been the following Christmas, 97. My mum surprised me with a few more that I didn't know were out. I had Road Warrior Animal, which I was elated that you could take the shoulder pads off, unlike the Hasbros. And then later on that Christmas day, I also opened both of the Godwins as well. I then got Savio Vega, who never had a figure before. So all of a sudden I was able to have a current fig fed with all these stars I was still watching on TV. And I had the freedom to be able to go out and buy them myself as well, as I saved my pocket money and got my Sunday job eventually, and was able to put money from that towards them. From that point on, probably for the next 4 years, I added to the collection myself, as well as birthdays and Christmas, but most of it was coming from me. So I've got probably more of an attachment to them for that reason than any of the other lines. A lot of people criticize the Jakks BCAs in particular, because I think for the lack of detail, some of them were still quite cartoony. Some of the likenesses were brilliant, as we'll see as I put the collection together, and hopefully getting those pieces that mean most to me. We can see some of the best ones, in my opinion. But it all starts with this one here. So without further ado, I'm going to probably drone on about the Jakks BCA line a lot more as we go through this whole journey with this one. And me grabbing hold of these. This isn't a completist project. I think I said that in the last episode. I'm not out to get all of them. I'm out to get the ones that either I had that I absolutely loved, that were my favourites, or those that were harder to obtain back then. As there were a lot of them that I saw only on the backing card or in the magazines. When the internet came along, I started hearing about more that were out there in America that we probably didn't see as much of over here. So my mission is to really just get those pieces that matter to me, that I want now to display in my collection, maybe that I didn't have before, that I'm actually able to get my hands on, which is where this guy comes in. There are reasons which I'll touch on as I unveil it, as to why this one was on my list way before I even thought about doing a Jakks BCA collection. I wanted to own one of these anyway, even if this was the only one I had. So without further ado, let's go over there, see what's in here. So there it is. Well, I've upgraded to a proper knife rather than trying to do this with scissors. Let's get this thing. I'm so excited about this one. And this is an eBay purchase, I'll say that, because I'll try to, as we go across, amassing all of these, I'll try to say where I found these, just to kind of show where I've been picking them up, because I'm quite interested when it comes to other people picking figures up. This was an eBay purchase. I've not seen one of these anywhere else, and probably for good reason. So let's have a look. There we go. Before I turn them over, just have a look at the backing card here. It's quite typical of these lines. They had so many sublines to these Jakks ones. It was, you had the Superstars series by this point up to Series 7, fully loaded Signature 3. I had a couple of the old Signature ones. Mankind and Steve Austin were in the first Signature series. I had them then. But just looking at some of these on here, just very quickly, Val Venus. Love that one because at the time he was one of the new guys and he obviously didn't have a figure before then. This was the one that I really, really was so proud of when I got it. It was X-Pac. Always wanted a 1-2-3 kid figure. Obviously, the Hasbro one was way out of reach when I was a kid. Didn't ever see it even over here. But I loved this outfit for X-Pac and the look of him and everything. He was great. They got the scale right on some of these, on quite a lot of these. You know, Undertaker in this series might have been a bit shorter than he probably should be in comparison to people like Val Venus, but the X-Pac, I remember, he was slighter than a lot of the others I had, which made him fit, which is great. Dr. Death, Steve Williams, I love the fact that we had a Dr. Death figure, but I don't know what was going on with that one. But there you go. They also used to come with, like the fully loaded ones here, come with various weapons and that. Anyway, I'm not going to go into my history with each and every one of these because they'll probably come up. I'll probably be getting some of these back, or I'm hoping to. Anyway, what we're here for is to find out what the fuss is all about. So let's get the box out of the way. So you ready? Hopefully I've not built it up too much and that's a real anticlimax, but here we go. There we go. From the DTA Tour 2 line, we are looking at the Blue Blazer, who obviously, as we all know, was Owen Hart. Blue Blazer was his gimmick with the WWF when he in his first run in 88-89. And he was a good guy then, and then they reintroduced here in 1999. They reintroduced the character. It's more about a bit of a parody they were doing with him then, where he was a superhero, a bit kind of like the Yellow Dog, and as we saw later on, the Mr. America kind of thing, a masked man who everyone knows who's under the mask, but the gimmick is that, you know, he swears blind, he's not, and he's out to convince everyone he's not. And anyway, we do all know the tragic sort of end to this tale as well, because Owen Hart was due to compete as a Blue Blazer in an IC title match against the Godfather at Over the Edge 99. And he was actually slated to win the title from the Godfather that night as well. And obviously the tragic accident, which then saw Owen Hart lose his life that night, for me changed wrestling a lot from that point on. And whilst I'm not here to talk so much about that accident, we're here to talk about the figure. This is really the importance of this one for me, is that once I knew there was a Blue Blazer figure out there, first of all, this is the only one they ever did. And it's beautiful. They've got everything down, all the look of the mask, the colours on the mask, the cape is beautiful. And I'm not going in for carded figures. This might be one of my only ones or very few carded ones I'm going for. But I found this and the opportunity to have this, which was actually, I got it for half the price that people were offering the loose version for. I couldn't resist it. In terms of the card, you know, as you'd expect, it's a bit warped here and there. I'm not fussed about that. I'm not one of these who goes in for mint. The fact that it's carded is enough for me, to be honest. And I just love the look of this, and it's the history behind this one. Owen Hart was one of my favourites, and I was really devastated when that accident happened and we lost him. And I think just to have, it's almost like a time capsule piece. You know, this was him in that time when that end came, and I think it was, yeah, such a fun figure. I mean, even without the sad story, it was such a fun figure. I would imagine that would have looked great in my fig fed back in the day. But randomly, as we said, they all started to come with weapons as well. Never saw him with a wrench, but there we go. But yeah, so there we go. So that's what I'm classing as a cornerstone piece for my Jakks collection, is the Blue Blazer, really, because this was the one that I always wanted once I knew it was out, or they knew there was one, and it's taken me till now to get one. So there you go. What are your thoughts on this one? Put in the comments. You know, was it one that you had? Was it one that you wanted? You know, do you have different opinions on this? Do you not like the figure? And this was released, I'm not sure timeline-wise whether this was released after Owen Hart passed away. I'm guessing it might have been. But this was released in 1999. Obviously, it would have been kind of horrible timing for it to come out after his passing, but there we go. If that was the case, we at least got one. You know, they haven't done one since, and I think we've obviously, knowing the situation with Owen's family and the WWF, WWE, we're probably unlikely to see any Owen Hart figures again, any new ones. So thankful for that. So there we go. The Jakks BCA collection is off to a really strong start, in my opinion, with Mark Merrow, who's one of the ones that I never had. Al Snow is one of my favourites, and then this one, which I think should be in any collection, but I'm so glad it's in mine. Blue Blazer will take pride of place somewhere. Once I start to organise my space a bit more, I can have him somewhere pride of place. So at this moment in time, that is the only other figure I've had turn up, but that's a big one for this week. But that's not where my week's going to end. So I'll be back tomorrow / later in this video with a bit of a treat. Morning, guys. It's Friday, and you might be able to see it's a beautiful day outside. So we've all got a family day off today because it's my birthday. I get to choose where we're going. So I've picked a road trip a couple of hours down the road from where we are in Devon. We're going to go into Cornwall, down to Truro, where I have found no less than 4 really cool looking and sounding retro game and toy shops. So I'm hoping to get down there, have a look around, get to these shops, hopefully if we can, and see if I can find a gem or two. Let's go. So the 4 shops I had on my list, sadly I only got to visit 2 of them, and the other 2 were not open at the time we were there. The 2 I did manage to look in, I was able to film in one, the other just too small for me to look around and film properly. As you can see there, Harry's toy chest, although small, rammed full of great items from wall to wall, boxes of Pokemon cards and action figures on the floor to rummage through. This store is a must for LEGO fans. Half of the wall downstairs is full of new and retired sets, and they've even got a LEGO floor upstairs, which I didn't get a chance to look at on this occasion, but I will be back to have a look another day. Although both stores I visited did have some wrestling figures in various nooks and crannies and bins that I could look through, they were mostly from later lines, and I'm currently looking after, so not from the Galoob, not from the Jakks, the early Jakks lines. So I left them where they were on this occasion. Before we left, I did, however, stumble across a great shop inside the Pannier Market in Truro. It's called Curio. It sells all kinds of alternative music and movie memorabilia, which for me as a horror fan, a heavy metal fan, definitely spoke to the other darker side of my interest. So I had a look, and I did almost part with some cash for the awesome Captain Spaulding figure that you'll see here in this video, but I resisted temptation on this occasion. But again, I may well be tempted at another time. So definitely for those of you who are interested in the more sort of alternative culture, horror movies, heavy metal music, macabre, anything like that, definitely check out Curio. It's well worth a visit. So we've had a good day out. I may not have found anything for the collection today. We had a good hunt. We've had a good day out, but we've decided on the way back. I had to just show you this. We decided to stop in Lordsby Castle on the way back. So if I just show you, turn you around and show you the view. Check that out. Not bad end to the day. I'll see you next week. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, share, and hit the subscribe button. Also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Once Upon a Turnbuckle to keep updated about all future shows.